Hi everyone, let's talk a little bit about drums today. I'm making this video just because I didn't see a whole lot out there in regards to actually making synth drums with Linux software. So I'm going to get into that a little bit. I know there are a lot of great sample libraries out there, and I do enjoy using those and creating my own also. But at the same time, it's nice sometimes to have a really clean synthesized drum sound. So let's kind of get into how we can do that with what's available to us within Linux. So what we're going to do today, we're going to identify what wave shapes we need to create with a synthesizer. We're going to choose the software Synth to use. There are a few different synthesizers that work great for creating drum sounds. I'm going to be using AM Synth today. It's definitely a great synthesizer. I'd encourage you to check it out if you don't already use it with your music. And we're going to create our own unique drum sounds. So what are the characteristics of drums? For most drums, are going to be a short, loud signal. So kind of almost, if you clap your hands, a very percussive sound. So we're going to have that. Most drums are larger and, they do move a lot of air. So they have kind of a round tone. That's going to be, especially with kicks and with any tom sounds that you want in your music, you're going to need that nice round sound. Also, you're going to see that a little bit even with a snare. If you've ever played drums, if you turn the snare off, it basically has a round sound very much like a kick or a tom would have. And then when you turn those snares on, you actually have almost a white noise that's added to it. So we'll get into creating something like that. And then also we're going to get into cymbals just a little bit. For the most part, these are going to fill out the high frequencies in our music. So let's dive right in. All right, so let's start with kick and toms and creating some of these. So we're going to need to work with a sine wave. I think these is kick and toms are probably going to be the easiest things to create with software. So a sine wave for a nice round tone, we need a fast attack and definitely a short decay on that and zero sustain. So it's just a quick, when we trigger that with a MIDI key or with a piano editor, we want that just very quick attack with the drum. So let me open up AM Synth here. And this is just a default sound that's on the user bank here. And I have my MIDI keyboard hooked up so you can hear what this sounds like. So just a basic saw synth that we have right now. So we want this actually to be a sine wave. And since we want our kick and our toms to be kind of definitely a lower sound than what would be a C5 or a C4. We're probably going to need to change this a little bit here. What I generally do in this case is I'll go all the way over to the second oscillator here instead of the first. So the mix here, I'll put that all the way over to the second, and then I'll take it down an octave or two. So that'll just transpose it for me. And then here under the wave shape, we want to select sine. So we have something like this. So that's sounding a little bit more like a kick, especially if we hit it really fast. But how can we make it do that on its own? How can we maybe even shorten that up a little bit more? What we'll need to do is we already have the attack at 0 here. If we pull the decay up just a little bit and zero out this sustain, let's hear what that sounds like. It's getting closer. I think that decay is a little bit too short, so let's turn that up a little bit. That's starting to sound pretty good, but if we play that really fast, I get kind of a clicking, and we don't want that when we're using a kick. So let's just up the release time a little bit. It's a little bit better. I think I might dial that decay back just a little bit. Maybe go with something like, let's go around 70 or so. And I think I might actually pull that down another octave. That sounds pretty good. Now, if we want to maybe limit the amount of low end that's actually going to create in our mix, we can take some steps to do that right up front with a probably a bandpass filter. And just pull the cutoff down quite a bit. Okay. That's pretty good right there, right about 25%. So we have a really nice kick sound there. It's pretty quiet. We can definitely turn that up. And you'll notice if you play that a little bit higher, it's almost like a tom sound. So really, you could probably configure an instrument with AM Synth here to be both your kick and your tom instrument. It really just depends on how nitpicky you want to be about it. But I like what I've got here, so I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I think there's a way I can go and rename that as well. What do we got? 28. Rename. Let's rename this one. I'm going to call it Kick Tom 1. All right. Save that again. And we have that there. Perfect. Kick Tom 1. So if we go to other... And you can tweak that a little bit more if you want, but I'm not going to get too crazy about it. So you can go back to other sounds. And then go back to the kick now that you have that saved. I like that. It sounds pretty good. So now let's get into the snare. The snare is going to be similar to the kick. We're going to have that sine wave for that round tone because it is, in essence, a tom, when the snares aren't engaged on the snare drum. So let's do that. And we need to somehow get some white noise in there or some distortion or drive as well to get that snare sound. Maybe possibly some reverb too. So let's try that. I'm going to pull this octave up a little bit, and I actually might use... I think I might use the first oscillator here as the main. And let's just mix this a little bit. I want more of this one, I think. Let's try white noise. Oh, and before you do this too, it's probably a good idea to select a different bank. All right, so let's go back and we want a sine wave and white noise. We want more white noise than sine. We need to turn our sustain down to 0, decay up. We'll start with that baseline of about 70. This is pretty fine detail. Turn that release up. That's sounding decent. I think I might actually want more of that sine wave in there. And this actually sounds pretty good up at C5. And you might throw a filter on this as well. Probably in this case, you would use either a high pass or a band pass. Band pass might not be what we want. Let's go with a high pass. Yeah, probably a high pass. But you definitely, if you do that, you want to keep that white noise under control. Maybe something like that. You could maybe even add a little bit of drive. Of course, the more drive you add, the more it'll start sounding like a note. And you might want to dial back the volume. But I think that with just a very minimal amount, it sounds pretty good. Let's see about adding maybe some reverb in there as well. And we'll just up the size. That kind of adds to the snare effect. If you've ever been around a snare drum just talking loudly, sometimes you'll notice that the snares move. I think that's a pretty good snare sound. I'm going to go ahead and save that. Save that one as is. Let's go ahead, save, and let's go in, rename this as our snare 1. We'll confirm and click save again. So that'll update. So we now have our kick and tom sounds, and we have a snare that sounds pretty good. We may want to change that a little bit, and you may want to use a higher note there too. We might actually dial the decay back a little bit on this. I'm sure the more I sit here, the more I'm just going to make changes to it. That's kind of how things go. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll just save it there. So we created a quick snare sound as well. There are probably a million different ways you could do that, and I encourage you to play around and kind of do, what you think sounds best. Once you get with something that sounds kind of like a snare, tweak it a little bit, get it to where it's something that almost sounds like something in music that you enjoy, and it'll be completely your own. So very cool. Let's move on. So cymbals is another area, and with cymbals, you may create more than one. The reason for that is you may have something like a crash or a ride where it's a longer signal and then something shorter, almost like a hi-hat. And really for a hi-hat, you could probably use the snare that you already created, just go up the scale quite a bit. Maybe not. It's a little too percussive. But you could probably do something similar to the snare for a hi-hat if you'd like. But let's work on some cymbals here. I'm going to select the next preset. And for this, let's, I know I have a square or saw set at a very low level. So let's try that with the saw since it's defaulted here. We'll leave that at 50-50 mix, and let's pull in some white noise. That sounds awful. Let's turn the sustain down, pull up the decay a little bit. And I think we probably actually want a little bit of sustain. No, I don't think it's the sustain we want, probably decay and release. And let's... I'm really not too happy with that. Let's try a square. And let's pull in more of it. And I think we're going to need a filter to make this one work. Let's go with a high-pass filter. And just dial it back very slightly. A little bit more. Because remember, we just want to get those high frequencies through. And I think I actually want just a slightly higher decay. A little bit of drive on that as well. And probably some reverb would be very nice. So let's try that too. Well, maybe we do. Maybe we want just to create an envelope on this. Very quick. Because I'm not too happy with how the attack on it is. I'd like a little more attack maybe. Yeah. Dial this up, I think maybe 10 milliseconds. That's kind of high. I don't know for sure if that's the best way to go, but you know, we definitely have something there that we can work with. Maybe dial that decay back. It makes a pretty good hi-hat, actually. Maybe kind of like a closed or a loose closed hi-hat. So let's just call this one our, I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to rename this preset as a hi-hat one, or just hat one, and confirm. And let's save. So now we've created a, we have a kick, works for a kick, and also some toms kind of. And toms would probably have a little bit longer decay. And then we have a snare. And we also created a hi-hat, which sounds best right up here, probably C6. But there's definitely a lot that you can do with this, and honestly, if you wanted to change what the notes would do, you could do that easily by switching this one here instead of having the. Let's just try that. Let's try doing a square here and a noise here. So really, it sounds about the same, but we can just. The more I hear that, the more I don't like it. Let's get less of that too and more of the. I kind of like that. Anyway, that's probably something we can use. I'm going to go ahead and save that because I might use it in my music a little bit later. Anyway, I hope that this encourages you to dive into, either AM Synth or one of the other great synthesizers, AM Synth. I use this a lot. I love, really basic synthesizers that I can just quickly dial in, a sine wave for a bass or, a square bass, something like that. Put together some drums like I did here today, or even something a little more complex, if I want maybe like some Rhodes sounds or something like that. It's very easy to do. Also, if you like a little more complex, a little more fine control over what you're doing, there's Zen sub effects, which is great for that. So definitely encourage you to look around, but there are great synthesizers included with these Audio Linux distributions. So I definitely encourage you to check them out. Nick Dowell did a great job with AM Synth, and I really love using it. And we've got some nice drums now. Anyway, if you'd like to put this all together, what you can do is, as we did, save our drum presets. You can add individual drum channels to your DAW. This is basically going to be different MIDI tracks. So if I wanted to add a MIDI track for my bass drum, a MIDI track for my snare, and then a MIDI track for my hi-hat, I could do that, and perhaps I'll be able to demonstrate that here. But Ardour makes that really easy to do. Maybe I'll cut in some video here and show you how that's done here at the end. But as always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do that. Subscribe on YouTube. Leave me a comment on this video. Check out my website, wesleysinks.com. And definitely go to my Facebook page. You can like that page, and I'll post more information like this on there from on a regular basis. So definitely keep in touch with me. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'm happy to respond to those. Thanks, everyone.